time zones kung saan po pwedeng dumaan yung barko, Mr. President. But in terms of the baseline, it refers back to 9522, which includes the Calayan Island Group, Mr. President.
Hindi nga po yung batas po na binabanggit natin na atin pong ipinasa last year, inalis niya na po yung KIG. Wala na po roon eh.
With all due respect, Mr. President, nandito ho kami nung we were discussing this law, and with all due respect, hindi ho ganun yung nangyari, Mr. President.
Kaya nga po, kung sakaling sabihin natin na ang WPS now will include the maritime features of the KIG, exactly how many features are we talking about here? Can you name and locate each of these features? Can you see us or can you show us the official map?
9 major islands, Mr. President. That is the, there are 9 major islands, Mr. President.
Doon po sa KIG?
Hindi lang po sa KIG, but yung mga features po sa...
Yan nga po, ang pinakamahirap dito po, dahil wala pa po tayong official map ng West Philippine Sea, hindi po natin madidescribe lahat ang features. At kung meron pong isang Pilipino ang naaring mabuhay doon. I'm asking these questions, Mr. President, to make certain that we know what we are talking about when we say West Philippine Sea. Nung po kasing ito'y unang nabanggit nung nasa mababang kapulungan ako, dahil nga po sa hindi pagkakaintindi sa isyong ito, nung sinabi ko na ang West Philippine Sea tayo lang ito, but in the context of international law, hindi po talaga alam pa. Ang alam po nila ay yung South China Sea. Can you imagine, Mr. President, the discomfort, for example, of a passenger in a plane about his safety or her safety, kung marinig niya yung pilot at saka yung control tower, nagdidebate sila kung nasan siya lugar. Sabi ng pilot, I am here in the West Philippine Sea. Hindi maintindihan ngayon nung control tower. Ganun po kasi, after more than 16 years, or maybe 12 years, since 2012, nung ipasa po natin yung RA 12064, the Philippines has not applied with International Hydrographic Organization for the adoption of the name West Philippine Sea. Yun po kasi yung naging problema yata natin, Mr. President. Bakit po kaya?
Well, Mr. President, I think that question will be best referred to the Department of Foreign Affairs, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President, in proper time we will do that, but I guess considering that the West Philippine Sea is one of those areas that even our national defense officials are protecting or try to protect, kailangan po alam natin kung ano yung ating gustong proteksyonan. Ang sabi pa nga po ng ibang mga advocates, WPS, atin to. Mga ganun, di ba? China, umalis ka sa WPS. Even our president said in his statements, West Philippine Sea is worth dying for. We'd like to see and would like to know, Mr. President, when we send our children and grandchildren to war protecting the West Philippine Sea, alam natin kung nasan talaga. What are the exact coordinates? Ngayon po talagang ang labo talaga eh. Parang sinabi mo, yung Pasig River, some portion of Taguig, some portion of Pasig, and siyang portions of another municipality. Hindi mo alam kung saan nagsimula, kung saan napuputol. Maybe we can ask the executive department to be precise in its identification of the features and limits of the West Philippine Sea. Kasi po, para yung mga ghost missions or even ghost budgets, kasi nangyari nga po sa flood control, they were all using several applications. Hindi sila, magkakaiba po eh. Sabi pa nila, geotag, real time. Pero ang pong tingnan talagang wala yung mga flood control projects. So dito po, ganun din, kailangan matukoy natin. Speaking of maritime features, Mr. President, let me refer back to the map identifying its features. Ito pong, yung balik mo nga dun sa pangalawang mapa. Ayan. You will agree, Mr. President, that based on that map, Vietnam occupies 21 features, China 9, and the Philippines 9.
The Philippines 11, Mr.
O 11 siguro. So 21 features for China, for Vietnam, 9 for China, Philippines 11.
Mr. President.
What is the policy of the national defense regarding Vietnam?
Well, Mr. President, in the case of Vietnam, Vietnam is not actively trying to add more areas to their territory, Mr. President. Unlike China, Mr. President.
21 na kasi nakuha niya eh.
So that's why in the case of Vietnam, meron ho tayong mga trust building activities and diplomatic activities with.
So
with
pare-pareho
Vietnam.
tayong claimants dito, Mr. President. Are we going to force Vietnam out of these features?
With Vietnam, Mr. President, we have open communication lines with them, and these communication lines will also discuss this type of issues, Mr. President.
What about with China, Mr. President?
Well, with China, it's a different case because we all know that China is trying to claim our territories even within the inclusive economic zone, Mr. President. Nevertheless, diplomatic approaches is still the approach that we are endeavoring towards China, Mr.
Pero
President.
sabi natin kanina, Mr. President, yung open and actual negotiations ay ating ginagawa, and I've been even asked kung magkano ang budget natin dito sa actual negotiation, hindi lang naman megaphone.
The budgets are in the DFA, Mr. President, and the amounts are not significant because this is part of their diplomatic activities, Mr. President.
Hindi natin sila mapapaalis at hindi naman yun ang policy natin, Mr. President. So if that is the case, ang Vietnam ba, ang China, ay paalisin tayo sa mga inoccupy nating features?
Sa Vietnam, wala po. Wala pong ganun. In fact, we have good relations with Vietnam. Maraming nga hong Pinoy na teachers nagtuturo po sa Vietnam. With China is a different case, as you know, Mr. President.
Sa China is a different case. So, maaari tayong puwersahing umalis, Mr. President.
Mr. President, we still, the approach of our policymakers is to continue to engage, to continue to open the diplomatic channels with China and with other countries, Mr. President. And for me, that is the best approach, Mr. President.
But forcing us out from these occupied territories is a potential threat, Mr. President.
It's a potential threat, Mr. President.
If that is so, Mr. President, has the Philippines filed a protest with the United Nations Security Council as required under Article 2 of the United Nations Charter?
Well, Mr. President, to answer your question directly, no. But to give the reasons on why that policy was undertaken, the best department to answer that is the Department of Foreign Affairs, Mr. President.
Kasi po ang sagot natin is no, Mr. President, then the trend is more imagined than real.
Well, Mr. President, China has veto powers in the National Security Council, Mr. President. So yeah, that's why we have to strategize very carefully, Mr. President.
Kanina po, Mr. President, sa aking pagtatanong, I was trying to differentiate po kasi dahil nga sa sigarot sa West Philippine Sea, ang dami pong misunderstanding dyan, ang daming misconception. Kaya po kung minsan ay hindi nagkakasundo ang iba't ibang mga mamamayan natin. For example po, yung pinag-uusapan lang dito sa tinatawag nating West Philippine Sea na hanggang ngayon hindi natin talaga malagyan ng exact coordinates, ano-anong mga features niyan, ano-anong mga forma niyan, para sa ganun kung tayo makikipag-away talaga at makikipagdigma, alam mo naman po natin ang ating ipinakikipaglaban. Kasi po, ang pinag-uusapan po pagka sovereign rights lang, ito po ay mga functional jurisdiction over areas that are not territories. Katulad po ng binabanggit nating exclusive economic zone. Kasama na po yung contiguous zone, yung continental shelf, and even the extended continental shelf. Hindi po mga teritoryo to eh. Napagkakamalan po na teritoryo, kaya nagkakaroon po ng mahabang pagtatalo. Sovereign rights, Mr. President, is different from territorial sovereignty. Iba po yung sovereign rights sa sovereignty. Yung Estado po, katulad natin, have full sovereign rights, sovereignty rights, and jurisdiction over our territory. So we can apply our entire range of laws, whether constitutional, administrative, civil, criminal, or commercial, to all persons and properties and activities within our territory, subject to the rights of innocent passage, sea lane passage, open sky passage, and sovereign diplomatic immunities. Ang kaiba po nito, in contrast, yun pong mga tinatawag nating maritime rights. Halimbawa po, itong binanggit natin kanina, contiguous zone, EEZ, continental shelf. Ang may apply lang po natin dito ay mga batas or regulations relating to customs, taxation, immigration, and sanitation. Sa exclusive economic zone po, Mr. President, and continental shelf, even the extended continental shelf, ang mag-a-apply lang po rito ay batas tungkol sa energy, fisheries, and maritime genetic resource, exploration and exploitation of artificial structures, marine research, pollution control, seabed pipelines, and cables. So kailangan po kasing may paliwanag ito in defense of what we perceive as West Philippine Sea. Yun pong maritime rights sa tubig lang, hindi po territory na kagaya po ng ating gustong ipaliwanag na mabuti. Para sa ganon, ay alam po natin kung ano ang ating pinag-uusapan, saan po natin gagamitin ang budget, at kung tayo po'y makikipagyera, alin-alin po ang dapat nating ilaban na sa ganang atin, Mr. President. So, salamat po muli, Mr. President, sa panahon pong ibinigay ninyo. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat,
Mr. Sponsor, sa inyong panahon at pasensya.
Maraming salamat po, Senator Marcoleta, at
Thank you.
nakikinig po ang inyong kababayan na taga-Tarlac rin, si Secretary Teodoro. At siya po ay siniseryoso niyo po ang inyong mga mungkahi at suggestion. So maraming salamat po.
Pagdating na. Is,